Hi guys, so today I thought I'd do another video on mysterious, unexplained stuff along the lines of ghosts and cryptids. The topic here is giants situated in Patagonia, which is a mountainous region of South America that along the Argentine-Chile border, very remote and well known for tribes, certainly tribes that were dangerous interact with. A lot of British ships would go round the horn there, just like the land, a very hostile sea, like prone to all kinds of wrecks and storms. But the tribes that existed in this area, unlike many, were really dangerous to deal with and treacherous. And a lot of the reports we're going to talk about now about giants is very fascinating, I think. Just the idea of superhumans existing in remote caverns, whether true or not, is fascinating to me. So I got a bit first from the Magellan, which is the first story around that area. So the immense district of Patagonia and the island of Tierra del Fuego, extending through the last 15 degrees of south latitude, occupied by South America, has always been an unknown land to Europeans. It was first visited by Magellan in 1519, when he skirted the American coast to discover a passage into the Atlantic. But he of course bent on the one grand discovery that has immortalized his name. Could not linger among a set of savages on a barbarous coast when Lemaire's expedition was fitted out to discover another passage into the Atlantic. This is the savages, obviously referring to the tribes there who were primitive and dangerous, let's say. A landing was effected, and the young tall Patagonian, whom the sailors called the Giant, was coaxed on board one of the ships which set sail with him. So seems like these guys managed to get a giant individual on board. After they had been a short time at sea, the crew, tired of their long and unsuccessful voyage, and thinking they can make a handsome sum by the exhibition of the giant, poor giant, in Holland, steered homeward, leaving Lemaire and the rest of the ships. But as the poor giant proceeded northward, the unusual warmth affected him most severely, and before they crossed the line, the unfortunate exile defeated the hopes of the would-be showman. If we're to believe this story, this giant was moving into the northern hemisphere. He got very sick and died. Of course, you can say he was probably best left alone, giant or no giant. It didn't sound like a very humane or plan to take him. Interesting though, it doesn't really refer to height, but it says he was effectively like giant. A lot of the pictures, etchings that you can see from this voyage is shows that these regular Europeans are about up to just above their heads, or just above the hip of these so-called giants. That's maybe 10 foot tall if that is accurate. So I also found, this is again from history from the same voyage. One day, without anyone expecting it, we saw a giant who was on the shore near today's Puerto San Julian, Argentina, quite naked, and who danced and leapt and sang, and while he sang he threw sand and dust on his head. That would have been quite a sight. Our captain, Magellan, sent one of his men toward him, charging him to leap and sing like the other in order to reassure him and to show him friendship, which he did. Immediately the man of the ship, dancing, led this giant to a small island where the captain awaited him, and when he was before us, he began to marvel and to be afraid, and he raised one finger upward, believing that we came from heaven. And he was so tall that the tallest of us only came up to his waist. Withal, he was well proportioned. The captain named the people of this sort Patagoni. It sounds like the one they ended up trying to take back as a sort of circus show, and that confirms up hip waist. So yeah, that would be, gosh, as I said, around 10 foot if this story is accurate. That really is giant. I mean, that Roger Wadlow was a few feet smaller than that. So interesting story. And while I was researching this, I actually came across another strange giant story. This one's just really bizarre. A two-headed giant, and reading that from a Mexican website about the topic. Legend has it that the remote year of 1673, on the coast of Patagonia, a group of sailors would have captured a giant 3 meters high that they called Captua. Don't know if I pronounced that right. Sailors have heard rumors of cannibals giant inhabiting a deserted island. But cannibalism and giants often go hand in hand in all the stories and myths, all the legends. Feared and revered as a god by the tribes that inhabited the area. Intriguing by his legend, the navigators undertook a raid on land armed to the teeth. They also made sure to carry ropes thick enough to retain such a particular being. This actually reminds me of like a similar assault, but from a different period, where we hear the story of the giant of Kandahar in Afghanistan. I'm sure you'll find some interesting videos on that if you Google or YouTube search. Actually, probably better off YouTube search, because a lot of this stuff is censored. At some point in that exhibition, the sailors ran into a giant, and terror led them to shoot, seriously wounding him. He was then taken to shore, put on a boat, and taken to the ship, where he was tied to the main mast. However, the wounds produced by the bullets ended up taking Captua's life in a matter of days. So again, we're not living in humane times here. The poor bugger died on the voyage back, and then his mummified corpse was pushed on as a sideshow. As it said, what happened next is not entirely clear, but it said the corpse was carefully preserved by the ship's doctor, who stored it in a large barrel of brandy, preventing it from deteriorating. Soon after, the body was in Spanish territory, where it was acquired by a Catalan businessman who had enriched himself by trading in the New World. The man would have had an interest in this kind of thing, and legend has it that the remains of the giant went on to serve as decoration in his mansion. Duly embalmed, the corpse was mounted and exposed in a glass drawer. After some time, the piece mysteriously ended up disappearing. It was acquired by the owner of a rarity show. Audience curiosity to a new experience. Yeah, so this careful posters and eloquent screamers featured the show that promised the glimpse of the strangest things coming from world's most remote places. In the Edwardian era, the circuit of shows came to have more than 30 travelling companies appreciated throughout Europe and invited them to perform in the continent. A spectacle which would be totally degrading by today's standards provoked a sensation. Blah blah blah. Anyway, I'll post a link to the article on this. When I saw the poster, I thought, two-headed giant, come on, there's no way this thing could exist. But believe it or not, the mummy, which is claimed to be 3.14 meters from tip to foot, does actually exist, and there's pictures of it. So I will link to that article in the description if you want to see the mummified pictures. They're not pretty to look at, but fascinating nevertheless, and very strange.